I want to go to another great guest, first time on the show, and I'm deeply appreciative of him being on the show. We have the man himself, Ray McGovern. Ray McGovern is an American political activist, former Central Intelligence Agency officer. McGovern was a CIA analyst from 1963 to 1990, and in the 1980s, chaired the National Intelligence Estimates and participated in preparing the president's daily brief. That's a hell of a job. How you doing, Ray? You doing okay today?
I'm doing well, Jamal. Need to wake up a little bit more, but I have some coffee here, so I'm in good shape.
It's okay. I'm sorry. I know it's early. Doing a show from 7 to 10 is, yeah, it can be rough sometimes. So I do appreciate it. You sent me a video, and I was fascinated by this video. There's other things I want to talk about, but I do want to hit what you said. You went to, I guess, a speaking engagement by Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly. And after that engagement, you put out this tweet. I found the tweet funny, and I found the event pretty wild that you sent me. You said, what is a skunk at Senator Kelly's picnic today, quote, cry for the beloved Democrats' country, unquote. My dad cried when FDR died. I cried when John Kennedy was killed. I almost cried watching Kelly's 2-minute filibuster. Only 3 of the 250 there would talk to the skunk later. Brainwash. Now, the video that you sent was this one, and I'm going to play a small part of it. This is you trying to have a conversation with all of these people effectively about Russiagate. And I got to be honest with you, I could have told you how they were going to respond before you said anything out of your mouth. But this is the clip.
The CIA and James Comey of the FBI were deliberately lying about Russia favoring Hillary Clinton and wanting her to win. And they did that consequentially because most Americans, I dare say most of you, believe that the Russians are evil incarnate, and that if Trump said, let's go into Ukraine, you probably would support it because you're brainwashed. My question is that there was a national intelligence. We haven't.
Quiet down, folks. I'm interested in the question.
Okay. The question is this: there's a national intelligence officer. I was a national intelligence officer. It's about as high as you can get. Okay? Ask a question. She tried to whistleblow, and she came to your committee and said, "Look, these guys are lying through their teeth about Russiagate, and you wouldn't see her, and neither would anyone on your."
Oh, it's freezing. Come on. Okay, needless to say, you did not get the best reception at that meeting. And what's wild about it is after you finished speaking, the audience got hostile for one. And Kelly went on, like you say, filibuster, where he apparently just talked about, well, yeah, Russia, China, Iran. Oh, there it is. It was like Russia, China, Iran wanted to get involved in our elections, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He went on that line.
In 2020,
about Israel, by the way, but Russia, China, and Iran.
Right. And he diverted the conversation to 2020 when he said, well, Trump did win, but I was talking about 2016. Okay.
Right.
That's when it all happened. And that's why, people need to know this. I just reminded myself that I did get in the major point here, and that is that Russiagate, that is charging the Russians with interfering in our elections to defeat Hillary Clinton. No matter what you think of Hillary Clinton, this is consequential because 8 years later, these people, as was demonstrated there, are so brainwashed, so willing to think that Putin is about to take over all of Europe, which of course he's not. That they would march like lemmings off to war. Most of them were Army or Navy or Marine Corps, Air Force veterans. They would march off to war, and many would not come back. So I thought at this veterans meeting that I should bring up the fact that the key here is good intelligence. Now, if it's corrupted or if it's dishonest, as it was during Vietnam, as it was before Iraq. Remember all those weapons of mass destruction that were supposed to exist in Iraq? Well, they didn't. Okay. And as it is now, with respect to how Trump got in, they tried to prevent him from getting in. And once he was in, they concocted this memorandum, which now this whistleblower that I mentioned to Senator Kelly, this whistleblower has come to the head of national intelligence, and the head of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has put out. My goodness, I printed out last night because I wanted to see. This is what it looks like. Okay, now why all these? This is the last page. No, why all this blackening? Well, in truth, it's to protect this whistleblower. We don't know. Well, certainly the people in the agency know who she is because of her position between 2015 and 2020, right? But they don't want the world to know for fear that she will suffer, well, that she might even be harmed in some way, not just rhetorically. So when I asked, long story short, we think it's a woman, very senior, Deputy National Intelligence Officer is pretty senior, okay? She goes to the various committees of the Congress that are supposed to be exercising oversight over the CIA, and she can't get in the front door, okay? She went to the Senate Intelligence Committee, on which Senator Kelly sits, and she couldn't get in the door. And so I asked him, why did you rebuff her? And by the way, what's her name? And he said, well, I don't know his name. And I said, well, have you asked? Well, no, I have the power to find out who it is. Well, find out who it is, for God's sake. No, that's heckling. I'm sorry. This is just asking questions of a guy who should know and usually pontificates because he's got all kinds of Air Force, Army, Navy patches on his suit, which I forsook for simply this Veterans for Peace shirt. I'm on their board and on their advisory board, and I'm very proud to be part of that organization.
Yeah, they're not going to care. They're just not going to care. Like the Democratic Party has invested so much into this Russiagate narrative that they firmly believe it from flesh to bone, despite the fact that this was something Hillary Clinton cooked up, planned and dropped like a bomb with this notion of somehow inhibiting what Donald Trump is effectively doing. But I appreciate you going there and telling them that they were brainwashed.
Yeah, I probably just said that you were misled, but that was a little much. But it's so hard. When I said conspiracy, you probably should have said something else, but it is. It's the deep state. It's the people who have the leverage in our government, CIA, FBI, and lots of other folks. It's the Dems in this case, the Democrats, but it's also the media, okay? Now, if the media can't come around and give the time of day to what Tulsi Gabbard has revealed, but instead criticizes for revealing the identity of somebody undercover, my God. So if the media plays the role it has played up till now, Pulitzer Prizes for making stories out of whole cloth. Well, not whole cloth. The whole cloth is prepared at the CIA, and they bring the whole cloth down to the Washington Post, and they run the thing. So if the media, well, let me give you an example, Jamal. I mean, why do they feel so damn sensitive about this? Well, okay. The big thing at the beginning was the Russians hacked into the Democratic National Committee emails, okay? Now, why was that so significant? Well, maybe people don't remember, but those emails reflected the reality that Hillary Clinton and her DNC associates had tilted the playing field so much against Bernie Sanders that it can be said correctly that she stole the nomination from Bernie Sanders, okay? Now,
right.
So in the middle of June, Julian Assange announces, we have emails relating to Hillary Clinton pending publication. Oh my God. So the 15th of June, okay? Put that down. Okay. Now, the Democratic National Convention started on the 25th of July. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Well, we know now from this documentary evidence that they tried everything besides lawful and so forth to make sure that Trump was identified with the Russians and that Hillary's. Anyhow, they tried everything they could, but then they won. Okay. Now, right after Assange announced this in mid-June, June 15th, 2016, there was a fellow who worked at the Democratic National Committee. His name is or was Seth Rich. He had access to all these emails. He's the only person that we know had access to those emails and was murdered on the 10th of July, less than a month later. Now, it was real strange because they thought it would be they said it was a robbery, but the robbers didn't take any watch or any wallet or anything. They just shot him in the back of the head, okay? And then the FBI, for some reason, came in, scooped in, and took the case from the Metropolitan Police of Washington and took both of Seth Rich's computers, his personal one. And I said, okay, so and then the FBI lied to several courts saying they didn't have any information on Seth Rich. What's my point? Julian Assange, the head of WikiLeaks, offered a $20,000 reward for the apprehension of whoever knew who killed Seth Rich. Now, he was immediately asked, so was he your source? He says, we don't reveal our sources. So that's always been sort of a case in limbo. Did Robert Mueller, the investigator, go and ask Julian Assange? No, I guess he forgot. Did that fellow, what's his name, Durham, John Durham, go and ask us? No, they forgot to ask us. Who knows? Assange does. So it was all confected. Now, what I'm saying here is that this is not only taking liberties with the law and with regulations, which it is, of course. And let me just explain why they thought they could get away with it. James Comey, head of the CIA, head of the FBI, put in his book, written a year later, the book was called Higher Loyalty. The higher loyalty that we all owe is to the Constitution and the law, not to anything else. Anyhow, the higher loyalty book, he says, quote, I was operating in an environment in which Hillary Clinton was sure to be the next president of the United States, period, end quote. Now, what's my point? If you're operating in that kind of environment where you're sure that Hillary Clinton, well, you're going to do everything you can to help her. You're not going to jail for doing this, for violating. You're going to become attorney general, or you're going to get a cash bonus. So that's an aside. Now, what happened? Well, Seth Rich was killed, and now for the next several years, it was considered conspiracy. You are a conspiracy theorist if you so much as mentioned his name. But there was no resolution to his murder. And as I say, the FBI took all those computers. They have the evidence, and they have refused to share it with court orders. Now, here it is, you have Julian Assange saying these things are really good. They were released 3 days before the Democratic National Convention, namely on July the 22nd, 2016. And did they make a big impression? Well, they did. But what was the question all the mainstream media asked? Why did the Russians do this? Why did the Russians do this? None of them asked, my God, Hillary stole the nomination from Bernie Sanders. So just to wrap this segment up, if I may, you have the deep state personified by James Comey and CIA Director John Brennan. You have the Dems, of course. Hillary Clinton, we know from those documents, was indeed the intellectual author of Russiagate. You could see it in the documents, okay? And they're genuine. and then you had somebody murdered. Okay, so you have the press covering that up and covering everything else. So it's a kind of a noxious mix between the deep state, the Dems, and the media. And when murder is involved, as I believe it is, and I'll say that right out, even though people say, oh, McGovern, you're a conspiracy theorist. No. Explain to me why the FBI swooped down and took Seth Rich's computers. Explain to me why I was subpoenaed for all the evidence I had that it wasn't the Russians that hacked in. It was somebody else. It was somebody who had access to DNC computers. Why was I subpoenaed by Seth Rich's brother and fancy lawyers to produce evidence that the Russians didn't hack? Well, I didn't do that anymore because the head of CrowdStrike, the cyber organization that the FBI hired to do this, came up with testimony on the 5th of December 2017 now that there was no hack of the Democratic National Committee for these emails, that it was a copy with a thumb drive you stick in there, and that was under oath by the head of CrowdStrike. But 95% of your audience probably doesn't know that because the major media has concealed that since December 5th, 2017 to whatever it is today. It's too early in the morning for me to remember what it is today, but it's a long time, right? So people don't know that. So that's the challenge. That's why I'm delighted to be on your show, Jamal, because we get the word out and people should tell other people. And if they think that McGovern is speaking through his hat, no. We have documentary evidence. That's what we worked with when I was an analyst at the CIA. And, it's bizarre to have to work with that now on domestic issues as they pertain to the Soviet Union or to Russia. And
Yeah.
last thing I'll say is that the key, when people kept asking me for years, they said, McGovern, why don't you get that out of your head? Who cares? Who cares whether Russia's hacked or not? And what's the reason? And I'd say, finally said, well, I guess the reason is that Russia has nuclear weapons. And as I said, most people are brainwashed, including people very close to me. When I say Putin has done something correctly, I'm in Putin's pocket here. It's crazy, and that's what we have to contend with. Sorry for taking so long here.
I'm glad you explained it. I mean, my audience knows about the thumb drive. At least I think they do. The majority will. But your breakdown of it is extremely good. And as you make the point, I don't think people get the gravity of the psyop that was committed and perpetrated on the American public. And when you get, Democrats like howler monkeys that effectively believe this stuff, like from stem to stern, then it affects policy. It's not like it dies in a vacuum. They have a certain point of view. Well, Putin got Trump elected. Trump is an ogre, and we hate Putin because he got Trump elected. Like, there's a line of thought that goes along with it that adversely affects the ability to get anything done, even if it's some kind of deal, which is what I want to pivot to, by the way.